The first thing anyone noticed was the silence. Not the ordinary quiet of late afternoon in the African wetlands, nor the gentle lull that sometimes drifted over the marsh when the wind changed direction. This was something else entirely, something deeper, heavier, almost deliberate. Only minutes earlier, the marsh had been alive with sound. Cicadas shrieked from the tall reeds, their rasping chorus slicing the hot air into vibrating waves. Frogs croaked somewhere near the muddy banks. Dragonflies hummed lazily above pools of stagnant water that reflected the blazing orange sun. But now, the world seemed to be holding its breath. The insects had stopped. The frogs had gone silent. Even the wind appeared to hesitate among the towering grasses. Dr. Elena Kovac felt the change immediately. She paused mid-step, raising one hand instinctively, signaling the rest of the team to halt. Behind her, the other herpetologists froze in place, boots half submerged in the marsh's soft mud. Their equipment rustled softly, camera straps, measuring kits, waterproof notebooks, but no one spoke. Elena tilted her head slightly, listening. Years of fieldwork had taught her to trust moments like this. Nature often whispered warnings before revealing something extraordinary. Or something dangerous. "What is it?" whispered Marcus Diallo, the team's wildlife tracker. Elena didn't answer immediately. Her eyes swept slowly across the dense marshland. Tall papyrus reeds towered above them, their feathery tops swaying gently. Patches of water glimmered between tangled roots and dark mud. Sunlight filtered through scattered acacia trees, casting shifting shadows across the swamp. Yet something about the landscape felt different. Still. Watching. The insects stopped, Elena murmured finally. Marcus nodded slowly. Yes, he said. They did. For a moment no one moved. Then Dr. Liam Chen, crouched several feet behind them with a camera hanging from his neck, spoke quietly. Something spooked them. A ripple of tension moved through the group. In ecosystems like this, silence usually meant one thing. A predator. They had arrived in this remote region of the African savanna only 3 days earlier. The wetlands lay far from any village or road, tucked between a network of shallow rivers and marshy floodplains that only appeared during the rainy season. Satellite images suggested the area remained largely untouched by human activity. For herpetologists, scientists who studied reptiles and amphibians, it was a dream. Elena had assembled the expedition after hearing a peculiar story from several local fishermen months earlier. They spoke of something enormous moving through the marsh. Not a crocodile. Not a hippo. A snake. At first she had dismissed the claim as exaggeration. Stories of giant serpents were common throughout Africa, many rooted in folklore or simple misidentification. But then another report surfaced. And another. Eventually, the whispers formed a pattern. A creature the locals called the Whisper of the Marsh. A python so large that it left trails in the mud wide enough to resemble canoe tracks. A snake seen only briefly, usually at dusk, before disappearing back into the dense wetlands. Most scientists ignored the stories entirely. But Elena couldn't. African rock pythons were already among the largest snakes in the world, capable of exceeding 20 feet under ideal conditions. Yet documented individuals rarely reach the truly massive sizes often described in local legends. If even part of the stories were true, then somewhere in this marshland lived a creature unlike anything scientists had ever recorded. Which was why they were here. And now, standing in the eerie silence of the wetlands, Elena felt the faint electric thrill of possibility. Marcus crouched slowly, studying the mud at his feet. "Tracks," he whispered. Elena stepped beside him. At first glance the ground looked like nothing more than churned swamp, mud cracked by drying sun, scattered reeds bent by the wind. But Marcus pointed to a long, shallow depression winding across the ground. It curved gently through the grass like a slow-moving river. Elena's breath caught. The mark was easily 3 feet across. "Impossible," Liam muttered quietly behind them. Marcus ran his fingers lightly through the indentation. "It's fresh," he said. "How fresh?" Elena asked. Marcus lifted a small clump of damp soil. "Maybe an hour. Maybe less." The group exchanged glances. Something enormous had moved through here. Recently. They advanced cautiously now, following the massive trail through the reeds. Each step sank slightly into the soft ground. The air felt thick and humid, clinging to their skin. Mosquitoes buzzed lazily near their ears, but even they seemed strangely subdued. The trail wound deeper into the marsh. Sometimes it disappeared beneath shallow water before emerging again on muddy banks. Other times it carved a visible path through flattened grass. Everywhere they looked, signs of something powerful lingered. Broken reeds. Crushed vegetation. Small animal tracks abruptly ending. At one point Marcus knelt beside the half-buried remains of a warthog carcass. Only bones remained. Crushed bones. "Constrictor," he said quietly. Liam swallowed. "That big?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. They had been tracking the trail for nearly 40 minutes when the silence deepened. Even the faint rustle of reeds seemed to fade. Elena felt the strange sensation again, that prickling awareness along the back of her neck. She stopped walking. The others halted immediately. "What now?" Liam whispered. Elena didn't respond. Her eyes scanned the thick vegetation ahead. A patch of tall reeds swayed gently in the breeze. Nothing unusual. Except something darker lay beneath them. A shape. Long. Curved. Elena felt her pulse quicken. "Marcus," she whispered. He followed her gaze. Then his eyes widened. "Oh," he breathed. At first the object looked like a fallen log partially buried in mud. But then the sunlight shifted. And the log moved. The shape lay coiled within the reeds, massive and silent. Dark scales glimmered faintly beneath the dappled sunlight, forming intricate patterns of brown, gold, and black. Elena felt her heart slam against her ribs. It was a snake. A python. But far larger than any python she had ever seen. Its body stretched across the marsh floor in thick muscular coils, each one wider than a man's thigh. The immense length of it disappeared into the vegetation, looping through reeds and mud like some ancient relic carved from living stone. For several seconds no one spoke. No one breathed. Even the wind seemed afraid to disturb the moment. "How long?" Liam whispered. Marcus shook his head slowly. "I don't know." The snake lay motionless. Sleeping. Its enormous body rose and fell with slow, powerful breaths. Elena carefully lifted her binoculars. Through the lenses she saw the python's head resting atop one coil. The skull alone looked nearly the size of a human fist. Thick jaw muscles bulged beneath patterned scales. The creature looked ancient. Primal. Magnificent. Elena lowered the binoculars slowly. Her voice trembled slightly. "I think," she said softly, "we found it." None of them moved for a long time. They simply stared. Even for experienced scientists who had studied reptiles their entire lives, the sight was almost unbelievable. African rock pythons were impressive animals. But this one seemed to belong to another era. Liam finally raised his camera with slow, careful movements. The shutter clicked softly. The sound echoed through the silent marsh. For a terrifying second, the snake shifted. A coil tightened slightly. Elena froze. But the python did not wake. After a moment, its breathing returned to its slow rhythm. The team exhaled collectively. "Careful," Elena whispered. "Very careful." Slowly, cautiously, they moved closer. Every step was deliberate. Every movement controlled. Marcus positioned himself slightly ahead of the others, eyes fixed on the python's head. "If it wakes," he murmured quietly, "back away slowly. No sudden movement." Liam nodded, still snapping photographs. Elena knelt several feet away from the enormous coils. Up close, the scale of the animal became even more astonishing. Each individual scale reflected light like polished armor. Mud clung to portions of its body, evidence of recent movement through the swamp. She pulled a measuring tape from her equipment pack. Marcus looked at her. "You're serious?" Elena gave a nervous smile. "We may never get this chance again." Working in tense silence, the team began documenting the discovery. They measured one section of the snake's body at a time, careful not to disturb it. 15 feet. 20. 22. The tail still extended beyond their measurement line. 25 feet, Liam whispered when they finished. "Maybe more." Marcus stared at the massive reptile in disbelief. "That's impossible." Elena shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "Just undocumented." They estimated its weight next. 200 pounds. Perhaps 250, possibly more. The numbers barely felt real. Elena wrote the measurements carefully in her field notebook, her hands trembling slightly. If verified, this snake would become one of the largest African pythons ever recorded. Possibly the largest. The whisper of the marsh. Not a legend. Not a myth. But a living creature. And it lay sleeping just a few feet away. As the sun slowly dipped toward the horizon, the marshland remained eerily silent. The team stood beside their discovery, caught between exhilaration and disbelief. None of them yet realized that this moment, the quiet encounter with a sleeping giant, would soon ignite one of the most fascinating scientific investigations of their careers. Because finding the python was only the beginning. Understanding how it had survived unseen for decades. That would be the real mystery.